What in the world is the Nazarite vow? Stick around, we'll find out. Hey everybody, and welcome to The Whole Truth, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we are not skipping anything. So if that sounds good to you, reach down, hit the little subscribe button. Don't forget, you can reach or you can see all the videos at thewholetruthbiblestudy.com. So if you want to see all the videos in one convenient location without having to search around, they're just laid out really nicely. There's thewholetruthbiblestudy.com, and there you'll find all the videos and hopefully more things to come in the future. I've got more things being added already, but I'm looking to put Bible studies and other things on that site. So make sure to head over there, thewholetruthbiblestudy.com. Okay, now today we are dealing with the Nazarite vow. It comes out of Numbers chapter 6. And you probably, if you know a little bit about the Bible, you probably know a little bit about the Nazarite vow. The Nazarite vow, as we're about to read, is when somebody will make a vow to the Lord. And what they're doing is vowing themselves. They're consecrating themselves to the Lord. And the way to do that, according to Numbers chapter 6, this is in the ancient world. Okay, stick with me. In the ancient world, the way to do that was to take this vow, was to not cut your hair. You would let your hair grow out. You would not drink any wine, but not only would you not drink any wine, but it's really more specific. Like it even says no raisins, no grapes, no grape juice, no wine, nothing from grapes whatsoever. Set yourself aside from that, and you cannot be defiled. You cannot touch any dead body, no corpse at all, even if it's your mom or your dad. That's how you take the vow. What good does that do? Like why is that a thing? Well, I hope to answer some of that today. We need to start by reading the vow itself. It's a little bit lengthy. I hope you'll stick with me. It's Numbers chapter 6. We'll pick up in verse 1. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when either a man or woman consecrates an offering to take the vow of a Nazarite, to separate himself to the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and similar drink. He shall drink neither vinegar made from wine, nor vinegar made from similar drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, from seed to skin. All the days of the vow of his separation no razor shall come upon his head, until the days are fulfilled for which he separates himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. Then he shall let the locks of his head grow. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body. He shall not make himself unclean, even for his father or his mother, for his brother or his sister. When they die, because his separation to God is on his head, all the days of his separation he shall be holy to the Lord. And if anyone dies very suddenly beside him, and he defiles his consecrated head, then he shall shave his head on the day of his cleansing. On the 7th day he shall shave it. And then on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And the priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and make an atonement for him, because he sinned in regard to the corpse. And he shall sanctify his head on that same day. He shall consecrate to the Lord the days of his separation, and bring a male lamb in its first year as a trespass offering. But the former days shall be lost, because his separation was defiled. And now this is the law of the Nazarite. When the days of his separation are fulfilled, he shall be brought to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and he shall present his offering to the Lord, 1 male lamb in the first year without a blemish as a burnt offering, and 1 ewe lamb in its first year without blemish as a sin offering, 1 ram without blemish as a peace offering, a basket of unleavened bread, cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, unleavened wafers anointed with oil, and their grain offerings with their drink offerings. Then the priest shall bring them before the Lord, and offer his sin offering and his burnt offering. He shall offer the ram as a sacrifice for a peace offering to the Lord. With the basket of unleavened bread, the priest shall also offer its grain offerings and its drink offerings. And then the Nazarite shall shave his consecrated head at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and shall take the hair from his consecrated head and put it on the fire, which is under the sacrifice of the peace offering. And then the priest shall take the boiled shoulder of the ram, one unleavened cake from the basket, one unleavened wafer, and put them upon the hands of the Nazarite after he has shaved his consecrated hair. And the priest shall wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. They are holy for the priest, together with the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the heave offering. After that, the Nazarite may drink wine. This is the law of the Nazarite who vows to the Lord, the offering for his separation, and besides that, whatever else his hand is able to provide, according to the vow which he takes. So he must do according to the law of his separation. That was a mouthful. Now, I already gave you in the very beginning, I gave you those preliminary things. Don't cut your hair, don't drink any wine, and don't touch any dead bodies. Can't do any of those things. That's how to take the Nazarite vow. Now, things I want to add to that after just reading all of that. Number one, here's what we have to understand. If you're defiled by accident, so accidentally coming in contact with grapes or wine, or accidentally coming in contact with a corpse, or maybe it wasn't even accidental. It doesn't matter. The former days, they're past, they're wasted. In other words, here's what we have. If you break the vow, then you have to now redo it. You have to re-up. There's a story in one of the Jewish writings. There's a story of a particular woman, and she was took the vow for 7 years, and then she ended up being defiled, and so she had to re-up. She was almost at the end of her 7 years, and she had to re-up, and she had to take the vow for another 7 years. So these are the things I want to point out to you. Number one, if you're defiled, you can go and make an offering. This is in ancient Israel. This is not you today in 2023. This is not you watching YouTube or Facebook right now. This is in the ancient world. If they broke the vow, they would have to go and make an offering and seek forgiveness from the Lord, go to the tabernacle. They would make an offering, a sin offering, but then the vow was supposed to start over, and they're going to make good on that vow. Secondly, the vow has to be taken for an amount of time. That means when they take the vow, they are specifying, I am taking this vow from this day until this day. Now, one writer, I think Adam Clark, he made a comment that most Jewish people who took this vow, most people who took the vow for at least 1 year, because that would give their hair time to grow out. I thought that was an interesting statement, because the Bible did not clearly say that you should take the vow for 1 year or any specified amount of time. It just said that whatever you take that vow for, that you need to make sure that you stick with it. You go all the way through, and if you break it, if you become defiled, you have to redo it. And then lastly, when the vow is over, there was quite the cost when the vow was over. I mean, you'd come in with this offering, and this, you'd have your burnt offering, you'd have your sin offering, you would have a peace offering, you would have a drink offering, you would have cakes and wafers and oil. All of these offerings would be brought to the Lord when the vow was over. Now, what in the world is all of this about? Well, first of all, let's say this. It is good for you to consecrate yourself to God. That's a good thing. It's good for you to set yourself aside and say, I want to be used by God. There's one more thing I want to point out. It's at the very end of the text. Did you notice that it was, well, let me just read it one more time. This is in verse 21. This is the law of the Nazarite who vows to the Lord the offering of his separation. And besides that, whatever else his hand is able to provide. So it's not just don't cut your hair, don't drink the wine, and don't touch any dead bodies, but it's also whatever thing you're consecrating to the Lord, whatever thing you're setting aside for the Lord's use. So it's yourself. It's not just the thing. I mean, there's a way to do that in the Old Testament, was to take a thing and give it to the Lord. And we've talked about that a little bit here in The Whole Truth, but I'm talking today about you. That's the thing I want you to notice. It's you setting yourself aside and saying, I want to be used by God. I want to be consecrated by God. Do you know who some people were in the Old Testament or even in the New Testament who took the Nazarite vow? Samson took the Nazarite vow from his birth. In other words, his promise was his whole life would be set aside for God. And then what did God do? God used him. God gave him this great strength. We read about Samson and his great strength. Now, Samson became defiled. He was going to parties and he was drinking. Not only was he going to parties and was he drinking, but don't forget that he picked up the jawbone of an animal, of a donkey, I think it was, and he ends up killing men, and then drinks from the jawbone, and then he killed all of these men. So in that way, he obviously had all these Philistine men that he had killed. So in that way, he had obviously touched corpse bodies. And then lastly, you have the story with him and Delilah, and he toys with it enough that he gets to the point that he finally just completely breaks the vow. He tells Delilah what it is that would be his weakness, and she does it. She seduces him and then cuts his hair off. And what happened? He touched dead bodies. He drank wine. Now his hair was finally cut off. And what happened? He lost all his strength. Some people get confused with that, and they think it's all about his hair. They think all his strength was in his hair. But it's not just in his hair. It was that he was consecrated to the Lord, and the Lord was giving him strength. You see, that would be a reason for you to consecrate yourself to God, because you're seeking his strength. And you realize that the more you lean into him, the more you press into him, the more you're set aside for him, the more strength he'll give you. Do you know who else in the Bible was under the Nazarite vow? John the Baptist. John the Baptist, not drinking any wine, not touching any corpse. Let his hair grow out. He was a hairy man, according to the Bible. That's what we have of John the Baptist, is that he took the Nazarite vow and that he kept it from birth. And look at him as he was set aside. He was set aside to do the work of God. Maybe it's a good thing for you to consecrate yourself to God because you need to be set aside for his work. And you know that. So listen, as somebody who I totally believe that the Lord has called me into his service and called me into his work, it's good to consecrate to him and say, I'm going to be set aside for him. And yes, that means that I'm going to go without certain things. I'm going to let my hair grow out. I'm not under the Nazarite vow, but you get what I'm saying about the vow itself. For this person, they're saying, I'm going to take this vow that's even more than what the priest would take. The priest were under certain things. The priest wasn't allowed to drink as long as he was doing the priestly duties. As long as he was serving as a priest, when he was in that portion of his life, he wasn't supposed to drink. But under the Nazarite vow, you can't even eat a raisin. From seed to skin, you can't touch any of it. It's even further. It takes like the priestly vow, and it takes it even further, because that's what's happening. You're wanting to take your relationship with God further. And that happens when you're dedicating yourself unto him. Now, do not come at me in the comments and say that I'm somehow talking about a work salvation. I'm not talking about salvation. Salvation is in Christ alone. For by grace ye have been saved through faith. It is not of works, lest any man should boast. But those of us who are saved, is there something wrong with us consecrating ourselves to God? Most certainly not. It's good for us to consecrate ourselves to God, to set ourselves aside for God. You don't have to torture yourself for God. That's not what he wants from you. But he certainly does love when you set yourself aside and consecrate yourself unto him and say, I want to be used by you, God. Yeah, I saw this story just the other day. I thought it was an interesting story to read just before I came to this. There was a youth pastor, and he was noticing that in his youth, they were having these youth meetings and youth worship services, but he was noticing that the kids were distracted by their phones. And so he stood up and he told the students, he told them that they should give that up so that they could worship God for 1 hour. And at the end of that service, students went forward and took their cell phones, and they placed them on the altar as a sign that they were giving that up so that they could worship God for that amount of time. Now, I know an hour is kind of weak, and that's not compared to like a year of taking a vow like this, but I'm saying that the point is that they wanted to consecrate themselves to the Lord, even for that hour, to say, we want to be focused on God. We want to see God. You see, that's what the hair was all about, letting your hair grow out. It was a sign. It was a reminder that you're in the view of God and you're in the view of other people, that God sees what you're doing and other people see what you're doing, that you've taken this vow, so you should take it seriously. And that's what I'm saying to you. Should you consecrate yourself to the Lord? Should you set yourself aside? I'm not saying that you're gaining some sort of favor. I'm not saying that you're laying up treasures in heaven if you give your cell phone up while you're in worship service. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's good. It's good for your walk with the Lord to be set aside for Him, to be consecrated for Him. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope that you'll come back tomorrow as we get into the blessing. You guys know that song that's being sung right now, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, make His face shine upon you. That's what we're going to read tomorrow in Numbers chapter 6 as we wrap up that chapter. All right, I'll see you guys then.